Welcome to the TREPx podcast. TREP is short for entrepreneur. One of the most meaningful and rewarding, yet difficult challenges you can take on. The TREPx podcast gives you actionable insights, real examples, and success X factors from experienced entrepreneurs as we are learning, living, and sharing in the exciting endeavor of entrepreneurship. Now here's your fellow entrepreneurial traveler and host, Mickey Deming.
Hello there, this is Mickey Deming from the TREPx podcast. I'm so excited to share another interview today. I had a chance to talk to Lee Caraher. She has a wealth of experience and a phenomenal and fascinating story. She built the business Double Forte into a $5 million a year business with over 30 employees all over the country. Fascinating story of how she's grown that, scaled that, worked through all of the changes. That was one of the big things we wanted to talk about because the business is marketing and PR, and marketing and PR has changed a ton in the last 13 years, which is how long the business has been going. And so it's fascinating to hear some of the building blocks to growth. With whoever you are listening to this, your business is going to change. The industry is going to change. There are things that are going to continually evolve. And so for you, it's very important to balance that, knowing what's new, but also identifying the core things that never ever change and being really, really good at that. And also to serve the people you work with really well, because that's something that will never go out of style, and to build relationships helps you stand out with all the noise. The other thing that we talked about, and Lee is an expert in, is the workplace. And her company has a very unique culture, and she had some growing pains as she started to work with millennials and have millennials join the team. But as she learned how to best work with millennials, she's become very passionate about it, and it's something that she's helping other businesses learn. And so we talked about that, what she learned the hard way, how she made changes, and about her book, which is out now, about that exact topic. And so you can see everything about Lee and her businesses at her own website, leecaraher.com, spelled Leecaraher. So check it out and get her book and learn how to make the most out of the workplace with millennials. Or if you are a millennial, maybe you'll learn more about how to work with non-millennials and what they're trying to accomplish. So very cool stuff in this interview. And you can see the interview at trepxgroup.com, and you can see it on iTunes and Stitcher. So thanks for joining today. I hope you enjoy this. I had a lot of fun chatting with Lee, and hope you enjoy this interview with Lee Caraher. Hello, Lee. Welcome to the TREPx podcast. How are you doing today?
I am awesome, Mickey. It's great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, man, I am so excited. We just talked beforehand about all the reasons why I'm excited to you. There's so many questions I have. And I'll just start. Your business, Double Forte, is very interesting. So let's start there. Can you explain what that's all about today?
So Double Forte, we are almost 14. We'll be 14 in June, I guess. 14-year-old public relations and social media firm. We are headquartered in San Francisco, and we have offices in Boston and New York. And also in Healdsburg, California, where we have a wine practice. And I started a company with a very good friend of mine, in 2002, actually out of necessity more than desire, and not with a huge plan, just needed to make some money to keep the roof over our heads. And here we are 14 years later, I guess 13 and a half years later, and we have about 35 people this year. And I think our plan right now is to add, mostly on the East Coast right now, most of those people are in California, but add on the East Coast this year, probably between 7 and 8 people.
Wow, very cool. So I have so many questions already.
Sure.
Because one, the first that jumps to mind is just how much, starting in 2002, the PR and marketing world has changed a ton.
Oh, my God. Inside out.
Yeah, so can you just talk to, what are some of the big shifts, or what are some of the things that have remained constant even in all that time?
When I started the company with Dan, and now Dan has since left. Actually, he left twice. He left, came back, left. And he wanted to go to a much bigger firm, and I did not want to be a big firm. I've already done that. My last job, I had more than 750 people working for me, and I didn't want to do that again. But we're great friends. Just so you know.
He might come back.
He might come back again. Well, see, all the good ones come back. That is true. And I actually did not call ourselves a PR firm because I really don't like PR people. Because the thought of being a flack or, a PR person who doesn't know anything is just out to, lie. And I mean, there's just so much negativity around PR people. And there really was in 2002, tons of negativity about just the concept of being a PR person, a publicist. Right after the .com boom and bust, and then also after 9/11, that I just didn't want to be a PR firm. But our industry has changed dramatically since 2002. I mean, it's really gone through 3 changes to where we are today. And today, I'm very willing to call us a PR firm because of the advent of social media. People who know how to do what we do, which is traditionally talk with the media and other influencers about ideas and products and concepts so that they can carry it to their audiences. It's very much a negotiation skill. People who know how to negotiate with the people who have editors are really good at social media, because social media is not although there is pay for play, the genuine organic social media is a negotiation. It's me talking to you. I want you to spread my idea, but only if it makes sense for your audience, right? And then you'll pick 80% of my thought, and you'll add your own special sauce to it, and then it keeps going and going and going. Well, this is a PR skill, a negotiation skill. It's not a bot skill. I mean, you can't just buy. I mean, I could just buy whatever space you have to sell me, but it's not going to be as influential as the space that you give to me and my idea, because it helps you, right? So we've had to, the core of what we do, which is the function, which is how do you take a message and get it to an audience, that is constant, right? That has been the same, that's the job, get a message to an audience. How we do that has totally changed. And, we've seen agencies come and go in the last 13 years, just really come and go, like whatever the last fad is. And our job, I think my point of view is that our job needs to be, we need to be ahead of our clients, but not so far ahead that bug splat, we're making them, invest money in things that aren't tried and true. So we use ourselves as our own lab, right? Which is sometimes painful because not everything works, right? But, and then bring that experience, to our clients so they can, so we can do things on their behalf that actually help them, connect with the people they are trying to meet. From a business perspective, we're very focused on, we only work with companies we like. So, being independent allows you to do that. And we like to say we work with good companies who are doing good things in their categories, and that makes us happy. So that's where we focus.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of big points in there. That was really good. I think the first thing that stands out to me is just for all the listeners who are figuring out marketing and haven't been doing it as long as you. Yeah. What you're saying really stands out is that there's an element of marketing that's always going to be changing, and that's really intimidating. Like, do I know the new tools and things like that? But the core of it is taking a message that connects and getting it in front of people, and that really goes back to knowing who you're trying to get it to.
Who are you trying to reach?
So, yeah.
Well, and I think the thing about who you're trying to reach, sorry to interrupt, but who are you trying to reach, right? Where are they? Who influences them? Where physically do they go? What, are they even on social media? In some industries, they're not at all, right? The way you have to get them is direct mail. I mean, email marketing, which used to be, 5 years ago was like the bottom of the barrel, right? Is now so super important and so valuable. And there's lots of things you can do now to make it good. And then if you don't do it well, don't bother to play. And that's what I always say. Like, the job hasn't changed. Find an audience, understand what their pain points are, what can you help them solve, and then get it in front of them in a way that they can engage and become aware. And, that hasn't changed. The job, how you do it has changed dramatically.
Right. And I think that's true in every industry. And I think it's probably going to be changing even faster. And so I want to
go deeper into that, because you said it's really shifted 3 different times, and you guys have been able to navigate all of those. And really, you have to weigh, like, what are the constants versus, how do we stay on the cutting edge so we're not getting completely ran over.
Right.
That's the same for us in the accounting. Is like the technology keeps changing it, but at the same time, there's a core element to it. So, like, how have you navigated that, like that balance and not getting too caught up in what's new? How have you been able to work through all that change?
I think that from change we've been able to navigate change based on a couple of principles. One is we serve our clients. Our job is to serve our clients so well that it'd be so painful for them to get rid of us, right? And our average client engagement is almost 9 years right now, which is really long in our business. Wow. In San Francisco, the average engagement is around 3 years. So ours is about 8 or 9. And then every client's going to leave you. That's just true, right? Every client's going to leave you. So the key, and that could be because they had someone, we lost clients last year. A client got bought. A client had a new boss. We were doing great work. They gave us a party when we left. But truly, they gave us a big party. I was like, why are you having a party? You don't want to work with us anymore. We love you guys. And but we have a new boss and we have a new goal and you're not big enough. Like, that's going to happen, right? If you do your job, your client might outgrow you. And our goal is not to be large multinationals. So we're working with a company who went large multinational. They needed other skills. But if you can serve really well and do a good job, you will always keep the client. If you do great work and are really terrible to work with, you will lose every client. And if you do pretty mediocre work and good service, you'll keep a client a little longer than you should, but you'll end up losing them. But if service is at the key, taking things off their plates, doing things so it doesn't add to their day, delivering everything tied up in a bow so they don't have to do anything with the work that you've done for them, then you actually have latitude to figure stuff out, right? Mm-hmm. It's when you're sort of not serving your client and trying to catch up all at the same time that it's just a hamster wheel and you're going to lose everything.
Sure.
So during all this change, really started in 2008. So we'd been around for 6 years, 2008. The economy just tanks. Literally on September 13th, it was a Saturday. I remember it really well. I was at my son was, before he became 6'5", he was a horseback rider. And I was like, I used to ride when I was young. I want to ride again. I've got a great team. I had like 20 people then. I had a great team. I think I could work 3 or 4 days a week. I could start riding again. Absolutely. And, the Sunday, I figured out how to do that. And then the Monday, September 15th, by 10 o'clock, I was happy if I was working 4 days a week. And by 11 o'clock, I was happy at 5. And at noon, I was like, I'll be just happy if we don't, at 8 days a week that we keep everything we have. Because it was just, I've been through this 4 times. This was my 4th time through a major upheaval. So that's the first thing I said to everybody. Everyone's going to want to cut us. Not because of us, because of the economy. We have got to be the easiest people to work with. The answer is yes. Even if the answer is no, the answer is yes, and we'll get them to no. But they don't want to hear no from us. They're panicking, Yeah. And so when you can, long story long, sorry, but when you can be that partner that can understand what the client's going through and just take loads of work off, then you have a little more latitude to figure out what they actually need to do. So that was the first core. The second core was in this economy, it is true. And things are changing so fast. You have to be curious and you have to be lifelong learners. You have to be curious about what is going on in your industry. Who's way out there in the bug splat lane, trying to avoid the windshields. And what is their concept and what they're trying to do? And should you pay attention to it yet or not? And what are the tools and all that kind of stuff? And, it's really hard to navigate because every day it's 10 new tools in social media, 10 Twitter tools to know your audience. I mean, how do you even keep track of it? So we, at that time, that was 2010, that sort of really started. We created a team, internal team, and they spend, each of them spends 5 hours a week on this topic of learning. And we rotate the team. Everyone goes through the team in 3-month spurts. so that everyone has a chance to do this and everyone, can focus. But we have to always be searching for what are the best tools, what are the best apps, what are the best things, and that team is responsible for bringing things back to the rest of the company in a way that they can apply them. And that was a shift in learning from us, right? It was, this is what we do. We pick up the phone, we make a phone call, we figure out the idea. Not anymore. I moved from, pretty much a get home by Friday at 6 o'clock business, and that's still our goal. We pretty much get home by Friday at 6 o'clock. But the 24/7 nature of news and social media means we have a different way of approaching time than we did before.
Wow.
Just have to be flexible. If you don't, frankly, if you don't flex, you're going to be out of business.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think there's the things that people worry about now is like how much things change, and then the other side of that is like there's so much noise. Like there's so much noise out there, and how am I going to stand out? And as soon as someone just Googles something else, they'll find something else that catches their attention and they'll move on. And so what you're talking about are a lot of timeless things that people can do really, really well. Like if you know what your core solution is for a core person, and then if you serve the people really, really well and build those relationships, I think we're talking about stuff that is just huge. And I think there's a lot to take away in how you build a business that's bigger than yourself, bigger than, this short frame of time where something might be interesting, that is actually timeless.
I think resiliency is for entrepreneurs. You get it. We're all a little nutty. If you're in charge, you're all a little nutty. But being resilient and not being, I think where a lot of entrepreneurs fall down is when they have so much pride of ownership and what their vision was, that they cannot see that it's no longer relevant, right? Right. And we've seen that so much in our business. What was relevant 6 years ago is not relevant in the how. The what, getting a message in front of an audience so they can hear it, is the same, right? And I think what is really true, what you just commented on is, and I would say to anybody who is worrying about marketing and finding an audience, is less is more. Less is more, less is more, less is more. You don't need to be on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and LinkedIn and have a blog and right? You need to start with the core and do it really well. Really, really well. And probably, professional services businesses, you'd have to be on LinkedIn, I would say to you. You definitely have to be on LinkedIn. You have to have some content. But you don't have to be everything else all at the same time. You can build it over time. And there's many tools that help you build libraries over time and leverage the same assets in different formats.
Yeah.
But less is more. Do fewer things really, really well versus everything really mediocre. Because mediocrity is never going to win, ever.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I like what you said too, just about entrepreneurs can be a little delusional and think like this will work, and that same thing that makes entrepreneurs what they are can also create challenges sometimes. And so I'll go back to that and then turn it to you, because I said at the beginning, your first answer gave me like 15 follow-up questions. So you said you started this out of necessity. So how did that come to be? What delusion did you have that led you to get that going?
So what happened, I had been working for a very large multinational media company in one of their brands. And like I said, I had 750 people, 13 offices all over the country and in England. And it was publicly traded. And I had joined the firm because some of my mentors were there and asked me to come, and it was really great at the beginning. And then that company merged with another company, and in that, it just became, and then this is 2001, right? And we're in San Francisco, the epicenter of all NASDAQ crashes. So, and I'm the breadwinner in our family. I have two children. At the time, one was an infant and one was almost 4. This is at the end of 2001. My husband works half-time, and we were figuring out that my younger son has special needs. We didn't know quite, he's only 8-10 months. We didn't know what it was, but we knew we were gonna, it was gonna be a long haul with that child. And I'm the breadwinner, and the company was changing so much, and they were so generous to me. I have to say, they were streamlining, which was the right thing to do. They had, between the two companies in the merger, 37 different PR brands. It made no sense to keep them all. They offered me 7 jobs. And my husband's like, don't lose everyone's dropping like flies around me at my level. So I was a president of a firm within the firm, and then I was the executive vice president at the national level of the large entity, right? So all my colleagues are dropping like flies. I'm like, don't lose your job, it's not pretty out there. I'm like, I know. So on September 4th, 2001, I was had been in New York for the long weekend and had meeting with people in the company, and then finally taken a job that they offered that I helped construct with them. But I wasn't very happy about it. But I knew that this was going to be the best thing I could do, given the situation. And I came home on 9/4 from New York to San Francisco, and I, sort of reset the companies that I was responsible for, big bunches of people. And here we go. We're going in. And 9/11 happened, and I was on the same flight from New York to San Francisco that crashed on 9/11, 1 week later. And that moment in time said to me, I should not spend time on things that I really dislike, because I don't want to be that parent that is just so unhappy, doesn't see their child. I don't want to be that person. So I exercised my contract a couple days later, and I left, not knowing what I was going to do. But my original plan was to take off a year. By the time I had to give, some notice, and I was going to take off a year. That was starting in, I guess, November of 2001, or October, somewhere in there. And the short story is I drove my husband crazy. There was other circumstances in there, but basically I drove him nuts. And I was color coding closets, and I was, using 3 glue guns. And I was just, my friends are like, you did what? They had, it was ridiculous. And I went to yoga every day, and I spent about 5 hours a day on the issue that what is my second child, who had special needs, was going to doctors and having, but still 5 hours a day for someone who was working, 12 hours a day, that's nothing, right? I had a lot of time on my hands. So I did, in the end, my husband's like, you're driving us all nuts. I'm like, okay, I get it. And one day I had this mommy dearest moment, and he just looked at me like, you gotta go back to work, Lee. You just, you're not meant to be at home. I'm like, okay. So then I said, okay, I'm going to go back to work. I had time, I had some time, and I was looking to go into a company. I had been in-house at a large video game company where I had an awesome job at Sega, when Sega was about $1.5 billion company in this country. And so I was looking at going into equivalent jobs, and I was very far down the line in 2 of those jobs, which took a while to get that engine started. When my mother got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and was given 3 months to live. And I am one of 3 children, 3 daughters. We're scattered over the country. My mom and my father lived in Wisconsin at the time. I lived in San Francisco. I had the most flexibility. It was very clear that I could not pursue the 2 jobs I was in line for anymore, because I was going to be with my mother, and those 2 jobs would not allow me the flexibility to be anywhere but where they were. So I dropped that, and I got on a plane, and we figured out, okay, we're going to be with Mom. My mother ended up living almost 4 years instead of the 3 months that they predicted, which was a wonderful gift. But that made it very clear that I needed a job that let me be where my family needed me and where I wanted to be. And that was not going to be working for somebody else. So sort of those 2 things together, leaving the big firm because the way it was operating was not, I was just not comfortable with it. It was not making me, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, right? I was in New York 3 days a week, 27 weeks in a row in 2001. And this is not how I wanted to live my life. And then the necessity of just my life, said I needed to have a job where I could put the roof over my family's head and also take care of things wherever they need to be. Sort of came together and, all right, I need to have an agency where I'm in control. I can be wherever I want. Doesn't really make a difference. And one that I'll be happy in, that I'll be doing the work that we like to do and serving the clients in a way that they want to stay with us for a long time, because churn is just so costly, right? And that's where we came up with the idea of Double Forte. So that's really the necessity. One event, 9/11, pushed me out of a job that was very generous to me, but it was not right for me. And then my mother's health basically inspired me to create this company. I've always been entrepreneurial. I mean, at the large company, I was asked to start 2 companies for them, and I did. And the company before that, I was very, added groups all the time to what my responsibilities were. I've been very entrepreneurial. And then, which I think was a benefit, right? To when I became an entrepreneur and took, 3 quarters and 2 dimes and started this company with, and we were very intent on not taking, we had a lot of people just ready to throw us money to start the company. I was adamant about not taking anyone else's money, because, when you have to, my experience was that when you have to pay it back, or when you're pressed for money, you make short-term decisions that may not be good long-term decisions.
Right.
So I was adamant about not doing that. So we've never taken anybody else's money. We've made payroll every 2 weeks for 13 and a half years. So I remember that I still have the ATM. I still deposit all my checks for the company. Yeah. And we're a $4.5 million, $5 million company. I still deposit all the checks because it lets me see, but I have someone else managing all that stuff. And we do sometimes use outsourced agents like yourself. But I still deposit all the checks myself because it lets me, it's the moment in the month that I can see, I see everything. But I still have the first ATM slip where we went over the $100,000 in the bank. I still have that. Cool. It was many, many years ago. But it was a big milestone for us, because when we could have $100,000 in the bank, that was our first goal, get $100,000 in the bank, be paying everybody else. And so I keep all those things.
That's good. I mean,
that's another long answer. I'm so sorry, Mickey.
That's okay. No, this is your story. This is what we want, is like to hear how this came to be, how this team developed. And I think just to follow up on that, so like, you started like that and it's humble beginnings. You don't really know where that's going to go. And so to know where you are now, with 30-some employees all over the country, the big question that jumps out to me, especially without capital to back you up, and you can hire a whole bunch of people at once, it seems like you just have methodically grown this. And so I know that has been something you have really learned a lot about, is just the people aspect of it and the team aspect, especially what you're talking about with the core principles you're bringing home and what you're doing, the relationships you want to build. Well, you can't have all those relationships with your clients. So it's got to be ingrained into your team. So can you talk about that process? Like, what has your growth been like, and how you've developed a team to carry through all that you guys are about? Sure.
Well, I think growing a team starts with knowing who you are and what your strengths are and where you should spend time. So I've had a lot of several coaches in my career, and I didn't have a coach when I started the company, but I brought all my coaching stuff back out. And I said, okay, where should I spend time? And where should I not spend time? That was the first thing. And what am I really good at? And where is my biggest value? Because if I'm going to be in charge, I need to put my time against what the biggest value is, and surround myself with people who are going to not be exactly like me, right? Because if you have people who are exactly alike, then you have big blind spots. But if you can understand your strengths and your blind spots, and you can, find people who by patchworking, right, you can sort of cover all the bases. So I started with what am I really good at, and where I'm really, in football terms, Super Bowl 50 is here in a week and a half, which if we all live through it here in San Francisco, we'll be really happy. Because it's really killing the traffic here. But, in football terms, I am excellent at the pregame, at the kickoff, and 4th and 1. That is where I am the most valuable I can possibly be. I'm not as valuable in the, first and 10, second and 5, third and 4, whatever. I'm not as valuable there.
I like that analogy.
But I'm super valuable. Pre-game, kickoff, 4th and 1. Send me and coach, right? Yeah. And so at first it was deciding, so don't have me run accounts. Have me be involved with accounts, but don't have me run accounts because I will fail, right? And I can do it. I've done it for my, career, but that's not where I should spend my time. So, first I did what am I good at? Where should I spend my time? And then I created this matrix of, okay, what do I need to have happen then? All right. Well, the first person we paid was our accountant, right? I should not be spending my time doing accounting work. That is not my strength.
Pull that recording out and use that on our website. Thank you.
I should not be spending any time doing that. I can read a spreadsheet. I can do that work. It takes me 5 times as long as it would take you. And I am excellent looking at a spreadsheet and seeing a story from a spreadsheet, but don't make me put it together, right? I can, but I shouldn't be spending my time there. So the first person I paid was the accountant. I paid him for 6 months before I paid myself. And that was like the best investment I ever made because I spent my time doing the things I was really good at. Activating my network, doing the marketing, talking to people, doing speaking engagements, getting clients on board, recruiting, finding people who were going to fill in who was going to run accounts if I was going to be the strategic lead, that kind of stuff. So that's where I started. Like understanding myself and where should I spend my time, and where I shouldn't spend my time, I should outsource all that stuff, or bring them on board, in a different kind of way. As we grew, we really stuck to that. We have several sort of guiding principles on the kind of people we want to be with, right? We want to be with team players, people who are not so egocentric. They all have to have strong egos. You have to have a pretty strong ego to be a good team player, I think. But it's not, they're not trampling over each other to get to the next level, right? So we put this rule in. There are no quotas on titles. Everyone can be, well, there's only one quota on president, one, right? But everyone can be whatever title they're worth. Doesn't matter to me how many of you, any title we have, but when you're ready for it, you get promoted. We don't have quotas. We don't have timelines. We get none of that. So and that in our industry is really important because our industry is known for people like just stabbing each other in the back so they can get, go forward. So team players, people who are naturally curious, because we have in our business, you want to be naturally curious about the world so you can figure out where your story fits into it, right? People who take initiative, who do not need to be told everything they need to do. Like, how about this? How about that? How about this? And people who are what's the good word for it? Just pleasant to be around, have a sense of humor. I read a great book. Sean Murphy wrote this book, The Optimistic Workplace, which is our book club book this quarter. And he talks about it as, as you want an optimistic workplace. And if you have people who are sucking the optimism out of your workplace, they got to go. So today we talk about it as optimism. I don't know if we talked about it that way when we started. But those are the kind of qualities I'm looking for. And then if we do that, we can all sort of move forward.
There's some of the optimism right there, right on cue.
There is actually a lot of optimism going on right now. We have a intern party going on.
Wow. See, that's perfect timing. We were just talking about the culture and the optimism, and then we heard a loud cheer. That we did not orchestrate that. That was cool.
We should have told them to be quiet.
No, that could not have worked out any better. It was
can't get out.
the enthusiasm. You're not faking it.
I'm not faking it.
No. Yeah. No, that's cool. And so this ties right in really well with where we were at the beginning, and just everything's changing so fast. PR world changes, marketing world changes, and so does the workplace. And the workforce that is coming out into the world now is different than it was when you first started. And I know that you've written a book, and I want you to tell us about that, and basically how the experiences in growing this, and just the spoiler, the book is Millennials and Management. So it's figuring out, the workplace with millennials, and you've gone through a lot of experience with that, and now you've written this book. So can you tell us about what you've learned and what you can share?
Absolutely. So when I started the company, we only hired people who had 10 years of experience or more. So basically everyone was at least 32 years old. And then in 2008, when the economy tanked, that was at the end of the year, we survived the end of the year. And then 2009, as we were, I think it's really important when an economic shift happens, either in your business or in the economy in general, you need to look at your model and make sure that it's still going to be relevant on the other side of recovery. And usually it's not going to be. You have to do some shifting. When the economy shifts, you have to do some shifting in your model, right? And part of that model shift for us was actually hiring young people who did not have 10 years of experience. And that meant we were going to, and I wasn't really worried about it. When I had 750 people, 80% of them were under 30, So I was known for being a person who people wanted to be a mentee, who wanted me as a mentor, or, who thrived with me because I thought, I was always a young person in my career. So I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, we need a development plan, then we'll need to have some training, blah, blah, blah. Didn't really think anything about it. We hired our first young person. She was probably 23 at the end of 2009. And she's fantastic. She's so much energy, so many great ideas. We're so excited to have her. And her first day, I came in late to the office because I was at a meeting earlier, and there was a dog there. And not only a dog, but a big dog bed, a kibble dispenser, and a water dispenser. I was like, what's this dog doing here? Well, that's her dog. And that's Judy's dog. That's not her name, but that's Judy's dog. Oh, well, did we know Judy was bringing her dog? No. Did she ask if she could bring her dog? No. Is anybody allergic to dogs? I don't know. Well, let's go find that out first. No one was allergic to dogs. And then later that day, I came out of my office, and Judy and the dog were gone. And I was like, what happened to the dog? The girl with the dog. Oh, she left. Like, what do you mean she left? It's 3:30. Well, she had to go to San Diego. I'm like, what? It's her first day. Wow. And she won't be here tomorrow. Did anybody know she was leaving? Did she ask if she could leave? Now, first of all, the dog was a service dog. Has the red jacket. It was a Chihuahua. Mm-hmm. To me, in my brain, this was not a service dog. This, my brain has now expanded with the concept of a service dog. But I was like, what the heck just happened? So I called a couple of my colleagues around town, and I said, this just happened. Jolie, you were in for it. These millennials, they're terrible. Oh, you got off easy, blah, blah, blah. At least you showered today. I mean, all these terrible things. And I just thought they were overreacting. I didn't know what a millennial was. I'm like, well, I'm just going to ignore them because they were so negative. And then it took us a long time to be able to hire anymore. And then and she was awesome, and we just figured it out. I ended up with 6 or 7 service dogs in the office within about a month because she showed everybody how to get their dogs with a red jacket. And we figured it out, right? And we told her she had to ask if she could before she could leave, and she was a quick learner. Well, then fast forward about 18 months, I hired, and the agency hired 6 millennials within about 8 weeks of each other, and within 3 months they were all gone. And either we had asked them to leave or they had left themselves. And that's failure. That is 100% failure in recruiting. I'd never had 100% failure in recruiting in my entire career. And one person could be them. 2 people might be them, but 6 all at the same time had to be us. So that's when I started looking into the concept, right? I was like, what's going on? And I found all these negative articles. If you Google it today, you find about 3.5 million negative entries about working with millennials, right? And this is overwhelmingly negative. I'm like, how can this possibly be? I can't be negative about who I'm coming to work with. I'm working for at least 10 more years. I can't be negative about it. So I basically ignored it and went back to the basics, and I started interviewing millennials, my own, and then other people out in the world, and figured out what they wanted, and then figured out that actually if we can make it work for them, it actually works for everybody else really well. And so we did some shifting around, and then we started hiring millennials successfully. And now today, in San Francisco, the average length of tenure for a person under 28 is 13 to 15 months. And our average is 3 years and 2 months. So so I know they're going to leave. If I can get them to stay twice as long as they think they're going to stay, I win, right? And that's where we focused. And so the book And then half of my own consulting work, what I do for my clients, turned into this millennial coaching for my clients. Oh my gosh, we have these millennials. We have to fire them. Why do you have to fire them? You have to fire them. It turned into that just by virtue of the fact that we do a lot of internal communications too, because your first audience is your staff always. And they were having a big disconnect between their staff and management. And so I was brought in to help them do that. So, it was my clients who asked me to write the book. That's what I did. So, and the goal of the book is really straightforward. It doesn't take very long to read. It's pretty practical, sort of why we're in the situation we're in, where there's so much intergenerational conflict, which is not a new thing. We just talk about it as if it never happened before. But, I have a degree in medieval history, basically 1,000 years of intergenerational conflict. So it's nothing new. And, but it's different for us because in today's world, we have 4 generations in the office at the same time. This has never happened in our world, in American history, where we've had 4 generations working side by side. Also, we have offices and workplaces that are very flat. They're not, not as many closed doors, many more open doors or cubicles or whatever it is. And you might be sitting I'm sitting right next to a 25-year-old who is half my age, right? That may not have happened. That didn't happen in my beginning of my career. I sat very far away from those people, right? But in today's world, we sit right next to each other. And the third piece is that, Xers and late boomers, so I'm a late boomer, we grew up hearing about work-life balance our entire lives. And particularly around working moms, right? It's really the working mom who made this the dialogue. You couldn't pick up a newspaper for 20 years without hearing about work-life balance, right? So millennials show up in the office today and they're like, okay, 6 o'clock, I'm out of here. And we're like, wait, the work's not done. Well, it's time for my life, right? They expect the things that their parents talked about their whole lives the first day of their career. And this is very challenging for those of us who are a little older who had to work really hard for that. Yeah. And I guess the last piece is that millennials are digital native. And they are used to multitasking. They are used to communicating in multiple formats, in multiple ways throughout the day. And it looks different, right? And it's not natural for boomers who have to learn it, right? Xers have an easier time. But this is the nature of the advantage of technology for millennials is innate, and it has to be learned by other people. So those things together sort of bring together. So I put it all together in this book, which is easy to read, easy to follow. And there's some tools on my website you can just download, to help conflict resolution and all that kind of stuff if you like.
That's great. No, that's fantastic info, and I think something that is just a real thing for people to have to navigate, and it's great to learn, especially because what you talked about before, like playing to your strengths, doing the things you're best at, building a team. As you build a team, how do you surround yourself with talent and know how to help that talent thrive? So,
well, if you don't, bottom line, if you don't have millennials in your workplace, you have no future in your workplace.
Right.
So, don't avoid them. Bring them in. Right? Yeah. No. And you're gonna have to do some shifting. We're all gonna have to do some shifting.
Yeah, that's good. So we appreciate you learning it the hard way for us, and then teaching us so we can know that.
You battle scars.
Exactly. So
that 6 people failing, I mean, that was a body blow to me. Body blow, really.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then, but I mean, that says a lot though to learn from it and make the most of it, and now end up writing a book about the topic. That's really cool. So. I know you have more coming around, so where can we find out more and see what's coming next?
Sure. You can go to my personal website, which is leecaraher.com, LeeCaraher.com, and that'll have my book stuff and the speaking stuff and some tools. If you want to download them, please do. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the comment section. And you can get to my agency, Double Forte, from there as well.
Excellent. Well, this has been a pleasure. I think a lot of ground covered, a lot to learn. I'm really grateful for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Mickey. I'm hopeful that we'll get to talk again.
Yes, I think we will. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the TREPx podcast. For more episodes, interviews, and business growth tools, please visit trepxgroup.com.